It being 9 a.m. just about, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. Okay, we have an agenda that has been submitted to us. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
I'd like to pull action item number 6.
Number 6. Pull it totally or move it
Yep.
down to action?
It is an action. Just pull it. There's no backup information in the packet on it, and we didn't have a personnel committee meeting to discuss any of it, so
Put that on,
just take it off the agenda.
remove it totally. It's a request. That's number 6. No personnel committee. Okay, anything else?
It says that was grandfathered subsequent to the compensation study. Is that the issue?
I don't know what it means, so I mean. And there's nothing in the packet, so.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? Entertain a motion with that change.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. There being none, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Previous minutes, we have board minutes of November 13th. The additions or corrections to that.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. There being none, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Next is work group session we had last Tuesday, the 21st. Any additions or corrections?
Move to approve. Second.
Move in second and further discussion. There being none, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Next is public comment. At this point, we open it up for public comment. If you didn't register when you came in, we'd like to have names of people who are attending. But if you wish to speak to the board, please come forward so that we can record it up here in front. So, there's some public comments there and now. Anybody wish to address the board? Anyone who wish to address the board?
There's, Larry,
Come forward.
can you come forward?
Come forward so we can hear you. Identify and for the record, please.
Larry Gallisted, Hugoton Township.
Okay.
Can we address on action item number 1, can we address that at that time or should we address it now? Very good.
Have it open for discussion. Let's see, action number 1, you're saying?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. We have recommendations from the planning commission, but we could open it up at that point.
okay.
That way there we have the information, your information and the planning commission's information. That
We
makes sense.
can come up at that time. Okay, thank you.
I think that would work best. Thank you. Any other public comment? They apparently during each of the things we talk about. Next is consent agenda. We now have 6 items on the consent agenda. Number 6 was removed. 7 is on the back of that first page. Just clarify.
At 9:15.
6 of the regular agenda was removed. So we have
6 on
7.
the action items were removed, not 6 of the consent.
Oh, okay. I was misspoke. Number 6 of the actions reviewed. Okay. We were looking at consent, my error. So we have 7 items now on the consent agenda.
So there's been a lot of emails and confusion on this. Social worker. Competitive search.
The
Sure,
adult,
John,
County?
you had,
What were the questions?
well. So what are we actually looking for here? Because in the Tessa's emails, there's been back and forth.
She initially said that we had a miscommunication. She said that our retiring social worker was an adult services social worker. That's not the case. She works in children's services. So we just wanted to make sure that the recruitment that you're approving is for children's services.
Okay,
That's the only back and forth I've seen.
So basically, number 4 is the retirement of a person, and number 5 is approving the
The replacement.
search for that same person that's being retired.
But I don't know, the one I didn't pick up an agenda there. I picked it up online and it says adult services. The emails that went back and forth yesterday, I believe, were related to, this says that she currently works as an adult services social worker. That's not the case.
Correct.
Okay,
is that the only position for that? I mean, is that a one-person position?
Yeah.
That does this work?
no, she works in our children's mental health unit.
Yeah.
There's several that work there,
Okay.
so,
Is there,
but we don't have a need for an adult services social worker. We have a need to replace the outgoing children's services worker.
That's what I'm getting. So basically, that's a one-person position for the mental health
Correct.
social worker.
Well, we have more than one children's mental health social worker, because our caseload is big enough to necessitate that. Ms. Johnson is retiring. She's a children's mental health social worker. The additional position, competitive search, is to replace her
Yeah, I
position.
get that. So how many are there?
How many children's mental health social workers? I think 4. Three or four. We may have moved one to a different assignment some time ago, so.
All right.
Other questions?
Any further question on the consent agenda?
All
I
right,
see on number 6 here, I assume that's for Rob's.
Right.
Why is veteran services asked in this? I mean, I get that, I have no problem with that, but why is not extensions asked in the same thing when this is discussed? At the same personnel committee meeting, we discussed both positions, the increase from FTE. I mean, why isn't that in here too, extension?
I'm not convinced the extension needs to go. I wasn't part of the
What, but as
meeting.
a
as
personnel committee,
personnel.
as a personnel committee meeting, it was discussed and it was decided to go forward with that, correct, Greg?
But both of them. So that's you two, but the group as a board.
Right, but-
discuss it. Never got to.
Exactly, but it should be brought forward for discussion. It's not even being brought forward.
Well, part of the
Well,
community service,
does HR have any say in? Can you explain why it hasn't been brought forward along with veteran services?
Repeat your question, Commissioner.
The veteran services FTE position from 0.75 to 1.0 is in the consent agenda.
Yes,
At our same personnel meeting back in July, we discussed the same situation for the extension on. And it was discussed at our meeting that we felt that that both of them needed to go forward for approval. Why is an extension on passed?
Well, first, I don't recall that it was discussed that both should be put on the agenda for approval, that they both should be discussed during the budget discussions is where I recall it was left. And then more recently, it's my understanding that the board had a conversation during discussion that they would like to support going forward with the veteran service position. This is after the budget discussions. And so I put it on there for your consideration.
There was also conversations at the same meeting about the extension being put on as well. Wasn't it?
At what same meeting? You're talking about the
Same
July
meeting that
meeting
you're referring to that it was talked about,
in July or
No.
June?
no, what you just referred to. That was talked about after our budget discussions. That they felt it should be brought forward. And I also.
I'm not
chimed-
certain what meeting, what date you're talking about.
So
sir.
what meeting are you referring to when it was said that after board discussion? thought it should be-
Be about 2 weeks ago when we had community services meeting and the head of the veteran services was getting behind at work, trying to keep up with things and needed that extra help. And that was what was brought forward here 2 weeks ago.
I remember that conversation as well at the board meeting.
Mhm.
I also brought forward in the same conversation about extension.
He brought it up, but there was no request from that department head, if I recall.
That's not true. Do you have a request from Lisa Dirks?
Not recently, not since the board meeting that I'm, or the budget
Of course,
meeting I'm
but
aware of.
That's what I mean, but it was.
Well,
done
Commissioner,
back
I
in
don't
July.
have a position that is contrary to what the veteran service, not the veteran service, the extension office has. These positions were presumably discussed by various committees and commissioners during their committee work, whether it's with Veteran Service Office or with the extension, but I don't have anything recent that was sent to me asking that it be put back on the agenda subsequent to
I
the, I don't
I'm
have,
on the extension committee. I asked for it to be on.
well, not that I am aware of, Commissioner, nor recently. I understood that went through budget. Those weren't included during the budget discussion. There was a lot of back and forth. Recently, I received this request. I put it back on the agenda. I'm not opposed by any means to putting other things on the agenda. It just needs to be brought to my attention that it's a renewed request. It's that simple.
So you have no notes?
I'm not sure.
Lisa Dirks.
From last summer, I do, sir.
Yep.
That was prior to the budget determinations by the board.
Okay, any other comments, questions?
So it's dead in the water. It's.
Commissioners, if there was a renewed request, I certainly would have brought it to the full board's attention.
And I would say if it's dead in the water, because we can, can be passed, submitted to, and voted on at the. On its own, that's why we need.
Who asked you to submit this today? For the agenda?
It was brought to my attention that there was a discussion a couple of weeks ago towards the end of your meeting, that there was an interest in having this revisited and put back on the board. I contacted the department head to verify that. I also
So was it somebody from personnel committee that requested to be on the board agenda?
no, it came from the department head subsequent to a conversation by the board.
So there wasn't another board member that requested to be on the board?
It's my understanding there was a conversation during discussion by the board.
And during that discussion,
Commissioner, I don't know what you want me to say. I wasn't present during that discussion. It was brought to my attention. I said I would put it back on the board agenda.
The discussion was just brought up 2 weeks ago after this community service meeting. And we talked about it. he has contacted the head of that department. Is this for sure that you want help? This way I'm understanding what you just said. And that's where we're at. These Dirks wants to approach us. That's why we need to do things on individuality, not grouping things together like they do in St. Paul. Need to stand on their own.
We had a personnel committee and discussed this matter.
Before budget.
Well, this isn't budgeted either. Is it not? Is this change of FTE is not in the budget?
That is not, that is correct.
That
Okay,
is correct.
so we're approving something on the consent agenda that's not budgeted.
Commissioner, this is between you and your colleagues.
Well, I'm
It's up
just,
for your,
so I'm just discussing it here now.
Since the budget is not finalized. It's not on the current budget as it's set. This would be in addition to the current budget. Current budget is $11,000 over. This will put us at about $25,000 over. As far as the overall budget.
That finance meeting this morning found that the possibility be somewhere in the 19,000 to 20,000 amount. Change because of tax abatement changes from that. What's in the budget now is 32. Might be down to only about 12 or 14. There is some leeway here. The final budget is not set.
Well, in our discussion 2 weeks ago, when Bob brought it up that he wants to see this discussed and put up, I also brought up the part of the extension being put in there.
Or can we put it on the action item for next week?
2 weeks.
2 weeks and
Will be here, the AMC deal. And yes, we can put that.
we can, or
Okay, any further question, comment about the consent agenda? Entertain a motion.
So moved to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Is there a second? I'll second it. Roll call vote, please.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
yes,
Okay, moving on to our point, thank
for clarification, at the next board meeting, you would like to see the extension service FTE increase on the agenda,
On a consent agenda.
on the consent agenda. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have a 9:15 appointment with the Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center. And John can introduce and
Morning.
We'll wait for Commissioner Schultz.
You can start.
So today, got Eric Sievers, Executive Director from Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center. We do a lot of work with Hiawatha for mental health services. And partner on a good number of things in human services. Have worked closely with Eric over the last number of years. He and his organization have been solid partners for us in Houston County for many years. And so we were talking, Eric suggested coming and kind of giving you kind of just an update on some of the things that they're doing, his view of the world from a mental health perspective. And I'm going to do my best to see if I can run his PowerPoint presentation.
So that's, thank you, first of all, just for the time this morning. This is the light thing on your agenda, so I'm glad I could come and give you a bit of a break. So there's just to share some information on what our agency is and what we do for people that call Houston County home. So that's just my name. I've worked in this area many years. So the next slide just talks about a bit, just so you know. All right, there we go.
I'm on it. I'm on it.
So, Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center, really is in place in this county and throughout southeastern Minnesota to, provide services that are really focused on the individual. Hopefully we get it to them when they need it and provide it in a very good way. I list out here the values of our organization and we talk about these regularly at Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center about integrity, respect, being focused on people and partnerships. We're constantly, and I'll talk a little bit, a few of the slides really go into what we're doing and what we've been working on to really improve what we offer for people. And we always look at the financial piece of this, and some of our improvement has been to reduce cost to counties and to people that need our services. So the next slide talks about that since 1965, there, I just emailed our organization this. One of the founders of our agency was from Caledonia. I forget the name offhand. But in the 60s, we started providing services for people in Houston County. One of the first 3 counties we were created for was Houston. The other 2 were Wabasha, and the third was Winona. In 2014, we expanded into Fillmore County some and Goodhue County. So we're a 5-county agency, about 160 employees. And anything we provide in Winona, the majority of what we do out of our main primary location is available in some form for people in Houston County. And I'll get into those in a little bit here. But I just wanted to provide you a little bit of information on why we exist and why people in 1960s were smart and saw that, things aren't going to get better in the world of mental health and substance use. So nationally, 1 in 5 adults, 1 in 6 youth have some type of mental health condition. The concerning thing is there's a long delay in when people recognize they might need help and from when they get help, and there's a lot of factors that go into it. So it's around 11 years on average. Suicide is increasing within our state. Over the last 20 years, it's become more of a common thing. And really, we don't talk a lot and as much as we should, especially when I think of farmers and rural communities. It's a very real thing today. So that's just some data on national and state trends. I didn't bring all my slides with me. The next one is every few years, the Minnesota Department of Education has students complete a survey for grades 5, 8, and 11. And this is the information from the 2022 Minnesota Department of Education student survey. And you can Google this and you can dig into more detail. But in general, it just talks about 8th graders. That first bullet is doesn't mean anything for sure other than kids are struggling a bit with more depressive mood. So just about half of the students in the 8th grade last year answered the question in a way that feeling a little down or depressed or hopeless over the last few weeks, several days they felt that way. The hard thing, I spoke to a different group. It could be the timing of the survey, it could be a situation that happened that day. But the concerning part is how many don't feel comfortable talking to someone about it. So that's why what we're trying to do more of, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But then 9th graders, about 60%, a little more anxious. And then the last 2 numbers are just around that suicide or self-injury is concern that is becoming more of a concern with people of all ages. The next slide talks about alcohol related data, and that's really small. The bottom left is statewide. So this isn't Houston County specific, but if you at the very top line on that bottom left graph is all that shows alcohol attributed deaths in the state. So the top line is 2020, which we know still all too well what happened in 2020 with the pandemic, and the big increase towards the end of that year was alcohol attributed deaths in the state, which is around, it's 1 month it was close to 100, 120 in a month in the state. I don't have county specific data, but the top right gets to in Houston County, This is 2019. The number of adults in Houston County is the far left bar, was around 25-26% of adults reported binge drinking, which is for adults, 5 or more drinks at one time. For women, for females, it's 4 or more drinks at one time. That's what binge drinking equals. So it's a little higher than the state average, a little higher than the far right national average in the county. So the next slide just talks about one of the big things we've done as an agency, and Bob knows this really well, being on our board. In 2014, at the federal level, they created this thing called Certified Behavioral Health Clinics. And so what that is, it's a certification that our agency pursued and received certification to be a CCBHC, is what I'm going to say now, in 2022. This certified clinic is really, the good thing about our agency is we were already pretty structured as far as services to meet this criteria. It really has helped and drive us to do more screening and continue to provide that broad array of services. It's designed to help reduce the long-term challenges around access to care. So I'll get into how we try to do that on the next few slides. But one of the, if you want to go to the next one, John, the bottom graph here really talks about what we're trying to do as an agency. And really, we have done this for many years in Houston County. We're not just a place where people can go into our clinic just down the street here, but we do have that. But we also do a lot of community-based services in the schools and in homes, all around chemical health and mental health needs. So we're a very diverse agency, and we really try to meet people where they're at. The way becoming a certified clinic has really helped us as well from a financial standpoint is a lot of the services we have to provide according to the certification, we get paid based on the cost of providing that services. So 70+% of what we do is for people on medical assistance. All those services that we provide for people on MA and the people that provide that, we're reimbursed through a rate that's based on the cost, which is way different than what we did before. So it's a more sustainable financial model for us to sustain and recruit and retain people. The next slide, if I remember, goes into, so in general, these are just the main goals. Increasing access, which is one of our strategic initiatives as well, to really try to better integrate what we do and what happens in primary care. For many years, people will go to this clinic, get this, and then come here and get this other thing, and we never have talked to each other. We're trying to better integrate what we do with primary care. And the third item is just there's some methods of caring for people in this area that have a lot of evidence around the effectiveness of it, and we are trying to do more of that as well. So those are the goals. The next slide, I think, talks about just these are all the services we offer for people in Houston County. Some are here in Houston County, some are through our Winona office. So psychiatry services, you'll see in a future slide, we had a bit of a drop in how many people we served. We had turnover in that area, and we're rebuilding that and working towards having somebody physically come to Caledonia at least a day a month, and the rest is through tele. We added a pharmacy in 2021. Genoa Pharmacy specializes in medications for people with behavioral health needs. They're based out of our Winona clinic, but they do provide it for anyone within our 5-county service area. For many years, we've had outpatient mental health and substance use counselors in our clinic here in Caledonia. For a number of years, there's been at least a few people from Houston County who's been in need of long-term housing with supports. We have 4 group homes and a 20-bedroom apartment building in Winona. And I think right now there's a couple folks from Houston County who live in those settings. And then on the far right, and I neglected to put one, the community-based programs we provide include mobile crisis. So we're the 24/7 mobile crisis provider in Houston County. And then we have a number of children and adult services. I was just going to highlight the next slide, I think mentions our school-based mental health program. So this is a unique program funded through a state grant. And we have an agreement with every school we're in where they fund some of what we provide. So in the majority of the schools in Houston County, we have a therapist embedded in the school throughout the school year. So this is for ages 3 to 21. We provide services for kids in the school. We can go into their home, work with the family. And we do a lot of supportive things for the school through in-services and education and support for teachers and school staff. So that's that program. The next one I think is about our adult community-based program. I don't know, does anyone else do this down here, John? There might be others.
I think we have a few providers, but
So we're one of a few providers that do adult community-based services. And I highlight these two areas because this is what I think, we're just not come into our office and meet with us in our clinic kind of agency. So that most people know what that is. This and the school-based program are different. This is an adult community-based professional who works with an individual adult who, because of their mental health condition, maybe aren't able to do some of the things they'd like to do. So if they want help with how to get employment, we can help them with employment skills. If they have trouble managing their symptoms, we do symptom management. So this is just a general list of some of the areas we can focus on. We're getting down to the end here, I think. So this is just a graph of the number of people from Houston County that we serve each year. So it has increased. And I'll hit the slide. The next slide really talks about what areas. So this is really hard to see. I need new better bifocals, I think. So the far right slide, the far right graphs really are about, can show you the big areas that we focus on with our school-based mental health program, mobile crisis, and then our clinic-based services. So there's some of this dipping and rising is due to people leaving and new hires. We've been fortunate with our outpatient mental health program. We served 190 or so people year to date, which is well over what we did last year through that program. We've been fortunate. We have a full-time therapist in our Caledonia clinic now, which is wonderful to be able to provide for the community. Our psychiatry, which is the second to the right, we had a bit of a drop, and that's that turnover we had. I anticipate that's going to be higher than it was last year in time. And then our substance use program, we added a counselor. So, and we were really hitting groups hard, and then some people, and then those kind of fade away, lack of follow through and just the challenges with people kind of working the plan. So that's a high level overview of all the different things we provide. Our challenges, I think, is the next slide. They're what a lot of places have is recruitment and retention of people. The need in the community is greater than it's ever been, and at a higher level of I guess I'll use the word illness. People are really struggling more than I've seen in the 30 years I've been in the field. We still struggle with parity in the work we do. Our primary healthcare insurance companies really don't reimburse us very well. So we're going to work next year on that. We exist to help anyone as a community mental health center. So if someone walks into our clinic and they need help, we'll find a way to help them today, regardless of their ability to pay. And then, the thing, I'm from this area, from southeastern Minnesota. I love the area, lived here my whole life, very rural, which makes it great, but it creates challenges in service delivery because of the distance between maybe us and where someone needs help. And that can just create some challenges with transportation and housing for people. So our road ahead is, the next slide is, we're very committed to access to care. So we have a group that's meeting and meets around how we can provide the best care and access possible. We have a strategic group working on how to use data to inform what we do. We're a feeling agency, right? And so some people are a little leery of looking at numbers, but we have to do that to know if what we're doing is making a difference. And the last few is us really getting more out into the community through events and with them. those are my main bullets that I had for you this morning. I don't know if you have any questions for me. Went through that really quickly because I know you got a full, but those are the highlights.
Questions? Comment?
What is the most common substance abuse issue?
So alcohol is still number one, alcohol use, especially in this area. And we actually, like I mentioned, we added a substance use counselor this year. Partly because we're probably 2 years from someone retiring and wanted to plan ahead a bit for that, but alcohol continues to be the number one substance use in the area.
Do you see an increase in fentanyl abuse or
Um,
heroin?
I have, not so much an increase, but one of the things we did as an agency, and you'll see it if you walk into our Caledonia clinic, we're a fentanyl access point agency now. So if someone is concerned, someone walks in and we're concerned that they're maybe overdosed or on something, we can test them with fentanyl test strips, and we have naloxone kits in our clinics now. Just, we recognize that, the goal is unique to the individual. And so if we can save a life, we have things in our clinic now that can help do that we didn't have before. And then we'll help them get to where they can try to reduce the use and recover from that illness. But alcohol is number one, though. I mean, pretty clear in this area. From a mental health standpoint, depression, anxiety, nationally, state, country, it's always depression and anxiety lead the way very strongly. That's what most people are struggling. And some it's both, one creates the other and that kind of thing.
Is there other substances that creates depression,
Well,
substance abuse?
yeah, it's a chicken or the egg question a little bit, because alcohol is a depressant. So by using alcohol by itself to feel better, you're gonna become more depressed if you continuously use. I've worked with a lot of people and seen a lot of people who it truly does get out of control. And when you look at all the things they've lost because of their use, it's hard not to get depressed about it. So you have to look at both of them at the same time. I recently lost a close friend due to alcoholism about a month ago in Rushford, and he just got at a bad place with things. So I've seen people too who have depression without any substance use.
Mhm.
So it's really individual, and that's why we need our substance use counselors and our mental health therapists and these community-based people to go to people who have a hard time getting to us to try to reach out to them. And I say that transportation, as I mentioned before, is a huge barrier. It's one of the biggest costs to our agency. The mileage of our staff going places to meet with people in the community, it's quite a bit. But it's probably the third highest cost after wages and benefits. It's one of the top 3 or 4 costs to the agency. But we've been doing that since the 80s when they closed state hospitals. We've really grown our community-based programs. Other questions? I appreciate the time. Come in here and stay here, warm up.
I'm glad that Eric mentioned access to service. In places like Houston County, all over the state, rural areas, having timely access to services that you need has been and continues to be a challenge. But Eric's agency is aware of that. They work with us. I'd like to be able to say we did this thing and solve that problem. It's an incremental change over time, and partnership like we have with Hiawatha helps us move in that direction.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Moving on to the action items. And the first action item we have is Marty and Julia would be consider approving or denying a CUP for Josh Dahl to expand feedlot from 342 to 534 in Yucatan Township.
Yes.
Marty.
Amelia couldn't be here today. She had a family.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
What Josh Dahl is proposing is to increase the number of animal units, so it's a conditional use permit. We did go out on site and meet at the site. There certainly have been public input in terms of road management and basically doing some farm activities in the right of way on the property. Those concerns, we've tried to address those in the conditions that have been brought forward. We can certainly add more additional conditions, and there's been some ideas brought up with possible inspections and schedules like that. We have a condition in there that talks about they'll notify us when they're doing spreading in the spring and the fall and those type of activities. Those are the main things that we talked about. The other thing would be is that improving his road approach for the transition between his driveway and then onto the road, to try and build it up to the point where it's not likely to track as much out onto the road, that type of activities. Other than that, that was the main things. I'm sure there's other people here that may want to talk too, but
Ms. Colston had comment?
I don't know if you can.
Larry Galston with Yucatan Township Supervisor.
Verdell on supervisor.
Couple questions we'd like to have verified. If some of these rules that they're putting on Mr. Dow for his feedlot, like the manure on the road and stuff like that, what are the conditions, or what can the county do to help the township? As supervisors, we can't continue on putting gravel on that same road. It's on a 3-year reconstruction. Right now it's down to 2-year because of the problem we have up there with that one section of the road. Has the county got the authority to enforce it, or do they have the ability to enforce it?
There is, and Amelia is working on the manure management plan. She was going to talk about that. There is a certain element that goes along with that as far as goes in terms of like patrolling, inspecting. There's certainly been a lot of discussion, in this type of activity in terms of, we can certainly say to them, you got to clean it up, you got to resolve this, you got to come up with better techniques. In terms of taking an enforcement action, is that to the scale of what you're talking about, like bringing out a lawsuit or being?
Well, it's just something to protect the township from keep on spending money on that one section all the time. Like I said, it's taken taxpayers' money away from their roads to do more construction on this road because of the damage to the road. It was brought up that day by one of his neighbors. He considered a minimum maintenance road, which really irritated us because I maintained the roads for 19 years. And we treated that road no differently than anybody else's road.
Well, it's not a minimum maintenance.
It's not a minimum maintenance road. And which kind of irritated myself and Verdell for him saying that. We do our best we can, and we only have so much money to work with as a township, as a levy. But if we could get this so-called cleaned up on the road for the neighbors, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Well,
Go ahead, Kurt.
in number 3 of the conditions, there's no manure, mud, dirt associated with the operation of the site shall be applied, spilled, tracked, or otherwise become located on or within the road right of way of Red Creek Drive. Anything tracked in the roadway shall be cleaned up in a timely manner. So I think what you're getting at, Larry, I'm assuming not to put words in your mouth, but
Right.
we have a condition here, what happens if it doesn't, if he doesn't comply? So that's, you know, it also states here that the county may enter the premises at reasonable times in a reasonable manner to ensure permit holder is in compliance. And I think, you know, we could add a condition on there saying that like biannual inspection in the spring and fall when he's cleaning out his pit, to go up there and physically look to make sure they're not spilling, tracking manure on the road.
Yeah.
And if, you know, if there's, I'm sure there's gonna be steps involved that are gonna give him the time to clean it up. You know, but if this is, comes with repetitive, there has to be rules that through the MPCA that we can, guidelines to look at. I wish Amelia would have been here. She's the feedlot officer, but she would know all that stuff.
The other thing that we can certainly do too is we can certainly drive by there and keep track of it. I go through Rushford a lot. I can go over that area. I like the idea of doing, not necessarily knocking on his door, but certainly driving by the road and, you know, kind of unannounced saying, look, taking a look at what's going on. So it's not out of my way to do that. I would do it even if it was.
I actually drove up there yesterday and he's gotten his feed bags off the right of way. So I think he's got the message on that, so.
And he certainly was agreeable to fixing up his internal roads or his driveway and, you know, and getting that improved. So it's a better base. So there's less tracking and that problems on that. So.
What we could do like we did with Bushite Farm. So first time was a warning, second complaint, then you got a fine. And you had to clean it up. Third time, the fine just skipped, but it's never happened. So just by putting in stipulations on it, scared them enough, so it's better.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's stepped enforcement. I mean,
Right.
that's the, you know, is how the actions that you would take. But I mean, if it gets bad enough, you certainly, I can talk with the county attorney and basically say, you know, I mean, we can put in a consent order that would basically say, here's the steps that you need to follow. And that's usually the outcome of what would come out of this kind of activity if it got bad.
We're definitely not against expansion at all. Just want to be done the right way for the neighbors and that. And everybody in the township, so.
But when I drove on the road yesterday, I thought it was in really good shape.
Okay, good.
You guys, it's not your fault. It's bad. I've driven that road many times and you guys done a really good job of it. Can't complain.
Well, I would like to add the condition of having a biennial inspection in spring and fall.
Okay, you want it
That'd be a good
announced or
idea.
unannounced?
It could be announced, whatever. I
right,
mean,
okay.
it doesn't matter, announced or unannounced.
Okay.
It says here that we can.
Yeah.
At reasonable we can approach, come on the property at reasonable times.
So we'll
And-
call
and-
it, we'll say announced.
All right.
Yep, that works.
And the township, you're free to check anytime you want to. So, I mean,
Yeah, and you see something, let us know.
we're on to work with everybody here, so we
Absolutely.
we'd like to get this resolved. When I drive on a lot of roads and got packed shelf on the back, you guys gotta make sure. Wish we had some of them in our. Weird.
Any other questions or comments?
I think he's agreed to two of putting a culvert in his driveway for that drag line hose for manure pumping instead of across the road. That was a problem they had before too. He's agreed to put in a culvert in.
And have you guys put it in too, correct? Did you put it in, Brunel? I think you said,
No, we don't.
or you don't put it in?
We don't put culverts in.
So that culvert on his driveway, that would allow him to put in the drag line. So he doesn't have land that he could apply to across the town road?
Yeah.
He bought that culvert is back there by the back farm,
Okay, oh, back there. Okay.
back there, and then he did by.
I mean, if he
their
could
bridge
apply
back
his, yeah, if he could apply his manure with the drag line, that sure would take
Yeah.
a lot of strip. strain off your road.
That's his plan, but last year we didn't get enough rain and he couldn't make enough moisture in the pit to make the drag line work.
So you had to haul it in solids. Yeah.
Solids. Correct, Frank?
Yeah.
That's
Well, I guess if you guys have no more questions and you guys are okay with the conditions that we're putting on.
Bob has,
Just one question.
Yep.
This drag line to the culvert that he's gonna put in is not addressed on here. So,
I think that might be into the manure management plan.
so it'll be in the manure management plan.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Amelia on that. One. She's out all day. We can.
That's
find
not a
out.
condition you want to put on. It's through his manure management plan that he has to fill out.
It doesn't have to be specified.
No,
makes sense.
and that's his private driveway.
No, actually, it's Rick. They share, Rick Howe and him share a field road there.
Okay,
So that when he was gonna combine this. Rick was gonna combine, drag line was across
okay.
to get back out behind the back barn. That's where
Alright.
that come.
Probably will help a lot.
Okay. Any more information?
Any more questions? Make
Made a motion.
Make a motion to approve the CUP for Johnstown, expand the feedlot from 342 animal units to 534 animal units in Yucatan Township.
There's a second.
Well, I'll second that along with that they adhere to the 6 conditions that are on here.
Okay.
Including the one I added.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Everybody understand the motion in a second? Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Being none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next, we move on to number 2. Consider approving or denying a CUP for Bluff Country LLC to place a dwelling in Ag District in Wisconsin Township North. Says here PC recommend denial. Artie.
Yeah,
You want to move that?
I don't think. That what the situation was is there's on that side of the road, there were 2 open quarters. And so what he did is he initially applied for a conditional use permit in the one. Then we held a hearing and the issues came up with what the definition of a field crop was, or a crop was, and the distinction between that. And so a discussion went on and it was tabled. And then I took that topic to the planning commission and I asked the planning commission to get their input on where's their view on what constitutes a crop, because there's a lot of situations where grass is cut. And then if it's baled and it's sold or it's used, is that a crop or not? Because it's been, and their position was pretty tight. It was along the lines of if they're taking something off there and they're getting some value from it, then that's a crop. And so with that being said, that took that back to Mike Sexauer basically and saying, okay, here's the situation. You need to show that, these activities have not occurred in the last 10 years because this creates a conflict that goes back to the comprehensive land use plan in protecting agriculture because of the prime ag soils that this is located in. And so he provided that information. It went in front of the planning commission. The planning commission didn't agree with that, his information on it. And then correspondingly, they generated the recommendation to deny the conditional use permit for the north site. And I will add, we'll get into this in the next one too, but it was also for the south site too. So both applications ultimately were denied.
You're referring to north, is that on the north side of North Pine Creek Road?
There's 2 of them. It would be on the,
On the same side.
I would say it's the west side of the road with that.
Okay, southwest side there.
Yeah, right. And so there's two sections there. There's one that's north, that's lot E and then the other one's F.
Okay,
And so that's what I meant by north and south.
Okay, thank you.
So it wasn't the side of the road, it was relative to each other
right,
in terms of what the positioning was.
so we have, a recommendation from the planning commission. Is there any comment as to this application? We're talking about the north one, first of all, which on this drawing is parcel E Edward.
Correct.
Any comment, on the CUP for the putting a dwelling on the north area of this, apparently that field there right past the golf course.
Yep.
Where I'm looking.
Yep.
Yep, okay. Any public comment on it? Come forward, please, identify and.
John Bauer, I'm the joining neighbor to the west. I do have some maps that I'd like to bring up, I guess. I can pass them out.
Sure.
You guys can have a look at them. I also passed them out at the last meeting. But we have some different ones. This is the packet I brought from the last one.
Okay.
That's 10 years worth of FSA maps.
Oh, okay.
And these are off of Beacon. Show some different images because of the records are confidential to the farmer or the renter.
FSA records are.
Yep. So these are off of Beacon. And this is the field that
Yep.
we'd be talking about
Which one?
right here.
I was gonna say, it looks like a
Yeah.
strip of corn there.
That's all I have.
That was in 2014.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's all you needed to say, John? Okay, anybody else wish to come forward?
Hello,
My name is George Johnston.
and I'm watching a board meeting.
Unmute.
John, you need to mute.
From the Crescent Township. And I don't know, did the last meeting I was at the
Planning Commission?
Planning Commission. Did all of you see this petition that I had?
It was in our packet. Yep.
It was, okay, then we don't need this one. But anyway. According to all the zoning. And all of the comprehensive use plan. For this. I don't see how. This could be approved. Because these are just quotes out of them two plans. The plan serves to ensure that important agricultural land is preserved. The plan also serves as a communication device between decision makers, units of government, and property owners. Sex Hour is put on notice that the property in question is prime agricultural land and not suitable for residential development. Page 6 of the plan, Houston County recognizes the cultural and economic importance of agriculture to community. Local decisions shall support maintaining the vitality of family farms and locally grown agricultural operations. Pages 11 and 16. Preserve commercial agriculture as an essential long-term permanent land use. Page 22, agricultural goals and policies. Policy 1, protect and preserve prime agricultural land throughout the county by limiting development in agricultural areas. Policy 3, encourage governmental units to avoid development in good agricultural land areas. And here's from the Houston County zoning ordinance, page 13. The purpose of the zoning ordinance is to preserve agricultural land. Page 15 and 16. It is the policy of the Houston County Board to administer the zoning ordinance with due consideration of the purposes and objectives of Houston County Land Use Plan. Page 19, agricultural use is defined as growing and producing field crops which include corn and hay. Page 23 to 24, conditional use is defined. A comprehensive use plan must conform to the comprehensive plan.
pages 46 to 48, chapter 6 of the ordinances discusses conditional use permits and the criteria necessary to issue a comprehensive use plan. You should emphasize that the planning commission conducted 2 hearings and secured and made findings of fact. The planning commission factually determined that the applicant Sex Hour did not meet numerous criteria recited in section 6.5 of the zoning ordinance. And therefore, the plan commissioners recommended denial of its application. I'd like to emphasize that the county comprehensive plan places an absolute premium on agricultural land in the county. If this here would be approved, all we're doing is setting a precedence for the next one, And there's more to it than just these 2 to this plan that they've got going. If that goes, you won't stop. The other thing is, this here was the Eden Farm, and Johnson ran that farm for 14 years. And it was a boost for him, because like in any business, you have to expand in farming. You can't run a farm like I grew up on with 5 head of cows, 6 pigs, and a handful of chickens. It's a nice, you eat good, and that's about all. So when you go to work, and take this land out of, especially down there, there's not that much available land. And in order for these other farmers that are still there, it's an opportunity for them to expand. So if you take that away from them, where do they go? I mean, there's a multitude other things that involved in that. I could go on here forever, but I think the general idea is that you have to stop this now, especially when you got all the plans in place. And if you don't, if whoever goes and goes along with this, to me, they're violating the law. Be the same as me going down the street in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, 60 miles an hour. I'm violating the law. So that's what I came up to say, and thank you much.
Thank you. I commend you for all your study there. That's a lot of homework you did.
Well, I had help.
Yeah, no, very good. Thank you. Any other comment? Any other public comment? Come forward, please.
Morning. My name is Lori Bauer. I own the adjoining property with my son. We farm. And I know that in our neck of the woods, there's already a lot of people there that complain about our tractors running down the road, our combines, running late at night, our cows bawling 2 weeks when we wean our calves. What are neighbors gonna do that are now you're talking about allowing a new, development come in there? So I think it is in our best nature. Not only has it been zoned agricultural, and we have done homework on that, it has been turned over in the last 10 years. Hay is crops also. It's a cash crop. They feed their cattle with it. You can sell it. Horse people buy it. Cattle people buy it. There's been a shortage. I completely deny having this addition next to us, or even taking cropland out of production. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord. Okay. We had a point of discussion more, or is there any other input? Freeman, come forward.
My name is Patty Thompson. I live on the township road, and my biggest concern is I'm against it also, but the road out there will not support many trips of cement trucks going in and out of there to build these homes. The township would have to build a better road to support this project.
I saw that in the comments on the petition. Yeah, quite a few times.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
especially like Jeff.
I think, we got quite a bit of information, and what's the feeling of the board?
Well, George explained it quite
Oh,
well.
perfectly.
I mean, you don't really, I got a copy of the comprehensive land use plan too, and in chapter 1, goals and policies and and conserved prime agricultural land has been historically tilled. Now, like we said, hay is a crop. There's a map here along in the packet that shows that that field is farmland. It's reported acres to the FSA. So, it also states here on chapter 2 on land and zoning is to discourage scattered leapfrog residential development in commercial agriculture areas. I mean, that's something we need to consider. So it's farmland, class 1 through 3 soils. I go along with the planning commission's recommendation to deny, and do we need? I make a motion to deny as well.
Okay, motion is made.
A second.
Second, further discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Denial. Next one is consider approving or denying CUP for Bluff Country LLC to place a dwelling in Ag District in Lacussa Township, parentheses south. And again, this is a recommendation for denial. It's just pretty much the same issues.
It's exactly the same situation. What it comes down to is that if he had the 2 dwellings and you split them out, you need a conditional use permit really for both.
Because he's building on less than 40 acres.
Right.
He's trying to get 2 houses on. One is what, 8 acres and
And
one's
one-
30?
Right.
And he's trying to put both
Right.
houses on a 4-acre field that is farmland. And so.
Yeah.
If there was room for, that it wasn't farmland, if it was some wasteland or marginal land, it'd be a different story, but he doesn't have access to any of that. There's no place else.
I mean, the only mechanism is through a conditional use.
Right.
Yeah. But the gist of why we had the 2 of them was just the fact that he would, if these were to be approved, which the first one isn't, that he would split them out and they would need their own independent
Yeah.
permits. So that's what it's about. Yeah. Otherwise, they're verbatim.
And that quarter section thing is just because of the quarter, but it's still the same field, but
It is. Yeah, it runs through it. And yeah.
they feel, any discussion on this one?
I make a motion to deny. On the same grounds as the first one.
Second. Bob, second. Which, okay, Mr. Burns?
Well, sure, second, but the only question, this is the F parcel that we're talking about?
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
Yes.
Just for me to,
Yep. Exactly.
thank you.
Okay, motion made and seconded to deny. Is there further comment? Question? A vote, please. Go ahead.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Okay, next one, number 4, approving or denying CUP for Skyline Materials Limited in Wesley Ford to do mineral extraction in Ag District in Money Creek Township. How was this one look here?
What this is it, Chris Freebie is, where the consultant is back there and actually. What they want to do is they're buying another parcel and then they're expanding the quarry. The idea is that most of this existing rock body has been used up and the owner is selling them another section, so they're expanding the quarry. They will comply with the encroachment rule because they're going to stay back far enough on that, so there isn't that issue with it. As far as the rest of it goes, the quarry does sort of sit down into a hill. It does have, it's actually kind of ideal set of circumstances in the sense that there is, the run-on is definitely contained on site. The hill up on the other side of the road, the water runs away from there by virtue of the highway, routes the water around. So the managing the water is pretty straightforward. It's not a quarry that's run round the clock. It's a on demand. It's partly the idea is that rock quarries, you just don't have to haul the aggregate as far. You know, that if you can find closer sources, you can be a little more reasonable in your prices.
Could be for localized use. You know,
Right.
project in the area.
Right.
Lime to spread that's close.
And you know, he did, the other thing that is interesting with this one is that this one never had a permit before. And so this one, it is being brought into the system as a result of this activity. So we are getting he will do the bonding, he will do the restoration work and all the requirements that the standard conditions that go along with a quarry are included with this. So.
So he's from GQ?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do forward. Yeah, sorry.
I represent Bruning or Skyline Materials. Basically what they have going on is they have an old quarry. There's a small quarry that it's just under the radar. It's operational. They crush rock once or twice a year and they stockpile it on site. And then if there's a local township, county or private driveway use for it, they haul it there. It's not a 7-day a week, 12-hour-a-day operation. The current quarry, I don't have my map in front of me, but the current quarry is under 8 acres. They're buying 8 acres from Mr. Ford. And the addition would be another 6.5 acres or something like that. Ultimately, it's under 20 acres. It's a small operation it's secluded within itself. It is visible from the road at the entrance. They left the wall up facing the road. So it's screened from all surrounding properties except for the entrance itself.
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. Which aids in wind erosion and everything else. It's kind of a perfect setting and it's good dolomite rock. So it meets MnDOT spec. So it's good road rock for the area.
This is up the hill from the trailer park.
We did get,
Campground.
one comment that they were in favor of the project.
It's a small quarry, I'm familiar with it, so.
Does the quarry taper away from the road?
The floor does, yes. So when it rains, the ditch of the road contains the any runoff that would come from the road itself. And then the quarry is the top of the hill. So they took the top of the hill down. So any rain that gets in contact with the quarry stays within the quarry, and the farm field that surrounds it drains away from it. So I mean, if you drive out there, you can see that it goes down from the road. Yep.
So you're going to expand south or?
Yeah.
Yep. It's south.
South and kind of laterally.
Okay.
The blue lines on our documents here is kind of what I'm looking at.
Yep, so that'd be the 8 acres. Well, that would be the 8 acres they're buying from Mr. Fort would be the blue line to the south. And then they'll remain a road all the way around the perimeter of that within that, so they have access.
Gotcha. Okay.
Is there a limitation on the elevation depth?
They're going to stay in the.
We have it on there.
In the dolomite.
Yep, we're not getting
So
below the-
basically, it's about at your floor level where you're at right now.
They did a
So-
boring there's on the top of the ridge where there is now, it should be in your packet because I included the well that they did. So they know where their floor is going to be, where the saleable rock is, and that's where they're going to maintain.
Yeah, you basically get out of the dolomite and then you're into stuff they can't use. So
We put a floor elevation of 1,071.
That's.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other question, comment?
I make a motion to consider approving CUP for Skyline Materials. And Wesley Ford. He's also named.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think he was part of the app because he's the owner until
until you have a sale.
it's
Okay.
approved.
Money Creek Township.
Motion is made.
Second.
Further discussion? There being none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carry.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay, number 5, consider adopting a non-represented wage and salary pay scale 3% for 2024. Yes.
Yes, commissioners, good morning again. This is consistent with the 2024 wages that were considered for in the budget recently, and it is consistent with the wages that have been adopted for all of the collective bargaining units.
And this affects how many people?
It affects the several people. It affects all the IT staff, including the director. It affects the finance, HR, or myself in HR. It affects the assistant county attorney. It affects the nurses. Don't believe I left anyone out.
Feeling of the board.
I make a motion to consider adopting a non-represented wage pay salary pay scale for 3%.
Second to that? Third second? I'll second it. Further discussion?
Just a question is. So these people. Are not on the. They're on the pay scale with the pay.
They're on the
wage.
pay scale. There are,
They're non-union, so they
they're
don't,
non-union. These are the positions that are on the pay scale. There are 4 positions that are off step that I will come back and explain to the board subsequently. That was
This
taken off
3%,
today's
then
agenda.
they don't get the COLA that the other ones do, or is this 3% plus?
This is a 3% adjustment to the wage scale for the non-represented.
3% is the COLA.
So they get the bumps in the scale, and this is the COLA, all right.
Except for the ones that were off step subsequent to the compensation study. But this will adjust the non-represented pay scale,
Unrepresented, non-union.
non-union.
Confidential.
No, the confidential people follow the, well, some of them are confidential, but the confidential clerical follow the AFSCME agreement.
Further discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carry. Number 6 was pulled. Number 7, consider adjusting temporary seasonal employee wage scales for seasonal workers and veteran service drivers, the sheriff's office transport, offsite supervisors, 3% for 2024.
Yes, this is an adjustment to those pay scales.
And this is
Request for it.
this COLA, basically.
It's the 3% COLA.
Yeah.
It's consistent with the county's practice with when they negotiated the 3-year union contracts.
Feeling of the board. Feeling of the board. I move to approve it. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Further discussion?
It's consistent for the part-time type employees who normally get the COLA, like the full-time. The seasonal and that.
In
Pass.
my memory, it is. We've always been consistent with giving an annual adjustment. There was one year we did not, but we were consistent across the board. There was a 0 increase for everyone. But there have been adjustments to our pay scales annually. And yes, sir, and this is the adjustment
For
we've
the
made.
seasonal and part-time.
Yes, we have made adjustments. And in this economic climate, if you will, it is more difficult. In fact, it's a real challenge in attracting part-time and seasonal people. So I recommend that we do this.
So there's most.
Just a question to Carol. Is this how, from a budget for 24 purpose, this is how it's put together already,
That's
right?
all figured
It's all
in
figured
budget.
in, yeah, that's right.
3%.
Thank you. That was it.
Further discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carry. Number 8. Brian kind of filled us in on this last week at the work, but consider adopting resolution 23-44 final acceptance of the SAP 028-599-083 and SAP 028-599-084 contract number 329 with Minowa for the replacement of 2 bridges with box culverts. That cost was $559,531.60. And it filled us in, I believe this is the Whipkey Hill ones.
Yep.
These are the 2 bridges in Wilmington Township, Greg.
Well,
Your
look
township.
good. Done right, look good.
That's what he all explained at the work group.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve that.
payments, okay, is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Being none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Number 9. Consider adopting resolution 23-45 final acceptance of CP 2022-08 contract 802 with Zinc Incorporated for courthouse parking lot project. Total cost is $325,964.12. Again, this was kind of explained last week with the ins and outs and
I'll make a motion to approve the cost of $325,964.12 for the parking lot.
is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
This was bid for 297,000, correct?
I think Brian went through the changes.
Yeah, I know the changes, but it was bid for 297,000. So why are we paying more on the bid that was bid out?
Change order.
Isn't there some funds still coming back from the city then? Or is this after the city's contribution to some of this work?
City will be reimbursed.
So then you'll get back down to the 20 or 300,000 figure with the reimbursement. Thereabouts.
I haven't,
Yeah, I mean, the answer,
The bid for it was at 297, then with the 20,000 it would have been down to 270 something. So, I mean, we did a bid. Bid is the bid. If there's overage, isn't that the bidder's responsibility to pay for that?
or didn't we have
Overage is in the
contingency in?
change order.
But the change order is the biggest part was asphalt. That should have been included in the bid. Right?
Well, if the
I
bid,
mean, just because the asphalt turned out to be more. That should have been in the bid.
well, when you look at typically, it's a price per ton. We use more tons than originally estimated by the engineer. So you pay by the ton for the amount actually used. There's also additional curb work done. There was the retaining wall put along the side of the courthouse as part of the addition. So you pay for the change orders and you pay for what you actually get.
Why did we bid it then?
Bid process included a price per ton, not a lump sum.
The bid was for the total project.
Total project included in that bid was the price per ton for the asphalt. Use more tonnage than the original estimate by the engineer. Ended up,
So we should have bid it on as time and materials instead of
could have,
a whole project.
could have.
Well, that's what it turned out to be by doing that, by accepting.
Some of it's change order and some of it's overrun on material.
Sometimes we have a contingency involved too, don't we?
Sure, there was a contingency in part of the project. I don't remember what it was, but
But there's a lot of changes that happened between the bidding process of almost a year ago and the project actually done. So, and a lot of that had to do with subcontractors.
The bidding process was this spring, last spring, I believe.
Was that the first year?
It was like in April, I believe, March.
Okay, any other discussion?
Roll call.
Okay, call for it.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
No.
District 3,
yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Number 10, consider adopting resolution number 23-46. Resolution of support for an agreement to sponsor Wilmington Township's pursuit of the 2023 local road improvement program. Funding for 9 Oaks subdivision paving project. So that's a letter of support, basically. Wasn't that what he explained last week?
It doesn't cost the county anything. We're the medium between the state and the township to do the project if they get it, we oversee. And there is a little bit of money for it, but it doesn't cost the county anything to do that. It's part of the county engineers duties to help the townships, so it shouldn't be an issue.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Further discussion? Being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Number 11, consider adopting resolution 23-47 to approve and accept Houston County right-of-way plot number 87 for the reconstruction of state aid project 028-620-016 and authorize, execute, and sign a certification statement of the right-of-way plot number 87. This one I don't remember that much of. What's the feeling in that?
This is for the new bridge on County 20.
County 20, okay.
New box culvert.
Okay.
Okay,
I make a motion to approve the resolution 2347.
okay, is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Takes care of the action items. Moving on to discussion down here, John, on consider pros and cons of exercising public health authority regarding cannabis business registration in Houston County. What are we up to now on that one?
Well, with the holiday week, and we didn't get as much feedback as I'd hoped from what other counties were doing. I did speak with the public health director from Fillmore County. Mentioned that it may be an item of discussion at your community health board meeting today. And kind of highlighted what I thought your issue is are you going to allow cities to register cannabis businesses? Or are you going to consider the county having one stance as it relates to 1 in 12.5? And in doing so, would you have to exercise your public health authority? I did speak briefly with Sam yesterday. He's unable to attend this morning. He's going to be putting together an email that kind of outlines some of the pros and cons with that. I was hoping he could be here this morning. There's in the statute itself, plain language of the statute, he said, it says that the county can limit to 1 per 12.5. So I'm not sure that's why I wanted Sam to weigh in as far as the legal process and doing that. My thought is more, what is the implication of that with your colleagues in cities? And if you decide to establish a 1 per or whatever number per 12.5, if there's more applicants who met the requirements that the state is asking for licensure, how will you decide who gets those licenses or your registrations? So that's subsequent to a decision the board needs to make as to, are you going to kind of put an umbrella over the county and make a decision for everything within Houston County, or are you going to allow city jurisdictions to have their own approval process or zoning process for those cannabis related businesses?
Most cities already do.
No,
Okay.
most cities have their own ordinances for the CBDs.
Yeah.
They don't have anything for the cannabis.
There's nothing for cannabis yet, because in order to sell adult use cannabis, high potency cannabis, you're gonna need a state license to do that. But part of that process, as I understand it, is they're gonna have to get a permit or a registration approval of sorts from the local government, be it a city or a county. The statute says that the county can't restrict, I would imagine cities as well, can't restrict less than 1 per 12.5. So, but there already are CBD shops that have been in existence for quite some time. And then also merchants that are selling THC, low potency gummies and infused beverages. So I think that's what you're referring to, is that there's already several of these types of businesses that are selling THC edibles. That presumably will also require a licensure that's going to be coming at the end of the 24 into 25.
So the state can issue them a license. And the city can say no. Who's gonna win that battle?
Yeah, that's one of my questions is,
CBD or the 22 law establishments. They don't have licenses from the state yet.
they will eventually.
They don't now.
They don't now,
So
correct? But presumably they are going to come under the auspices of this
yeah,
cannabis
we don't
control.
know.
They don't know. I mean, nobody really knows. I mean, is this gonna be one?
Well, I do think that the statute says that the THC businesses will come under the Office of Cannabis Control, but like I said, when we talked last week, legislative intent and what the rulemaking process is, that's what we're guessing at, what that's going to look like, what that process is going to be. We can also make an assumption that some of those businesses that are currently in existence, not needing a license, will want an adult use cannabis license from the state. And there's a component of local control to be able to permit or register or whatever, that you can restrict those no less than 1 per 12.5.
So it's also in the statute that the legislature passed that counties can exercise public health authority. Correct?
Yeah,
We're getting into Sam's area.
yeah,
I mean, that's,
I believe that,
that's what I'm hearing, that
Yeah.
if we issue our public health directive, then we are the sole enforcer of the ordinance in the county when it comes to cannabis sales. Cannabis,
from talking to Sam, I don't want to get too far out on a limb here, but the plain language of the statute says that you can restrict it to no less than 1 per 12.5.
right,
Whether it says in the statute exercising public health authority, I'd need to research that, but I would think that that would be the basis. Your findings is that you are the public health authority for Houston County. That's why you're
by
restricted,
putting a number on the.
Yeah.
The number of retail stores in the county.
right?
That'd
And
be the trigger for the public health authority.
I think so. So I apologize.
No, I understand. It's
And-
confusing.
It is, and I don't want to mislead you. I think in the end, the bottom line is the board needs to decide, do you want to have control over the whole county? Or are you gonna allow cities to have their own ordinances as it relates to not the THC stuff, but the adult use cannabis? And if you do want that, you'd likely exercise your public health authority. That would be your reason for doing that. Whether that's stated in the statute or not, I'd have to go or visit with Sam about that. But I believe the plain language says you can do that. So then the questions based on that would be, how do you make decisions? You have authority over the whole county. How you make decisions as to who gets a permit and who doesn't.
Well, it's probably basically the same way the state would, they're the ones that get approved the licenses.
I think they'll
And
approve
then
as
they'll
many.
look back at our county and say, okay, what is the county stance? Are you allowing one? Okay, we can only approve one, or are you allowing 6? We can only approve 6.
But even before you get to that, would we have to determine whether we qualify for the public health authority? And I think that's a question that Sam would probably need to answer.
I think he should answer that, but I believe you do, because public health authority you exercise on other kinds of things as well.
I've read the statute allowing that. I would prefer to see Sam's
Agreed.
recommendation on that before we even got into whether that, we got to know whether we're qualified to. And that would be something where the county attorney could give us that recommendation and interpret the statute. Otherwise, we can do what ifs and maybes all afternoon.
Exactly.
Bottom line is, we need to know whether or not we qualify to enact that, and are other counties doing that, like I asked before.
Yeah.
In your studies, Bob, did you see what are the necessary steps to qualify? I mean,
That's a good one for Sam to determine.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the only qualifier is that we have the AMC fought to get some local control when they were working to this through the legislation. And the only really local control they got was the limit of 1 per 12.5.
Minimum.
Right. Because the legislature didn't want nobody be able to ban it. But they compromised on the 1 per 12.5.
And I guess too, I think I'm getting a little bit down the road, but let's say we authorize 3, I'm throwing a number. And we tell the state that you can give 3 licenses. What if all 3 are in Caledonia? I mean,
Are the cities gonna go along with this? That's what I want.
yeah, or, how many, applications, if all of a sudden you get one who want to get into it, I don't know. Go ahead, Robert.
One, the state is gonna issue licenses to whoever applies and meets the criteria.
Correct.
The county doesn't gonna have anything to say about the license issue. County's got to say of how many that we're gonna permit to sell. You can have a license but not be able to use it because you're not permitted to sell. Many of the people involved in the business think that once this is Office of Cannabis is set up and the licenses are issued, that's all they need. They can go ahead and start selling cannabis, start selling marijuana. We, as the governing authority for Houston County, if we choose to become the public health, or, take the public health status and say, well, we're in charge of the entire county for the health and welfare of the people of Houston County, then it's up to us to issue the permit. I don't know how you're gonna end up deciding who gets one. If we have 2, because we're over 18,000, so I'm thinking we gotta have at least 2, but that's.
I don't think we're gonna decide who gets one. That's the state gets to decide who gets one. They're the ones that are taking.
I think
We got the permit right.
All we have a right for is the number. And the distances. Schools. Daycares. Nursing homes. 1,000 feet.
You've got some zoning authority.
Zoning authority, that's what,
Yeah.
that's what I'm getting.
We're in that area. And I think Commissioner Schultz has made a good point in that, you know, we're guessing. What the rule is going to look like once they write that rule is hard to guess. Are they going to look to us and say, we've said that we'll permit 2? And so then they'll only allow 2, or is it like Commissioner Burns is saying that if you meet the criteria for a license, you'll get a license. You just won't have a permit to use said license in Houston County. Because this county would be limited to whatever number. But I don't know exactly how that's gonna roll.
I thought it was up to us. State. Says, well, you're permitting 2 and here's. the
We're
2 that you-
limited on the ordinances that we can put on this stuff.
Yeah.
We can only control the distance between schools and, I mean, the state is the one that's gonna issue the licenses. We're not gonna have any say.
We're not licensing.
Oh.
But we can part of that license process is there needs to be a local permit.
Right.
So
So the shop in town here, he's under this cannabis, or not under cannabis, he's under a law that sells gummies.
CBD.
The
And up-
22
and up in that there, they can sell marijuana substitutes up to certain percentages, correct?
correct, they're edible gummies,
Yeah,
different things.
Percentage of THC.
Right.
correct?
Correct.
Okay, so 25 comes around and we got a whole new blanket setting again. So where's this place gonna fall under? He gonna get in there to sell marijuana, or is he gonna have to stay with his, under his old law? How's that gonna work?
It depends on whether he applies for a license to sell adult use cannabis. If he applies for adult use cannabis, he'd need to meet the criteria that the state sets out in the rules that aren't made yet. And to get a license. And there's some caveat in there that allows local government to restrict to no less than 1 per 12.5. What I've tried to put forth is if you pick a number, you may have more applicants than you have said you're gonna have a number. And then you have to decide how you're gonna make those decisions.
But
I
that's
apologize
us
if
that
I,
decides, or is like you said, Eric, it's the state that decides.
We don't know yet.
The state is gonna look to us and say, how many does the county want? What's your number?
Our number is 2. You don't have anything to say about which.
Which two? You might have people who are, or organizations that are selling cannabis in more than one county. So they may be licensed to sell cannabis, but they need a permit for specific counties based on the number that they choose. So
So let's say this shop in town, the state issues them a permit to sell marijuana and the county denies it.
We can't deny it, only if that we had a number. If
Yeah.
we don't have a number,
I
you can have
mean,
as many as you want. We can't deny it unless it doesn't meet the state's criteria and the county's number.
by law, can we set a number?
It's in the statute.
I believe you can.
One
You
per
just
12.
can't have, your number can't be 0.
Right.
Your number has to be, and 1 per 12,005 of population
Is the minimum.
is the minimum. You can have more, but you can't have less. And Commissioner Johnson's right. I think that was put there so that there weren't counties that banned it altogether. And you end up with a patchwork of counties where it's legal and counties where it's not.
So
So
after we've talked to Sam. He tells us what we can do. We can make an ordinance that allows 2. And you talk. 2 in Houston County. That's it. We notify the state that our county ordinance is 2 for Houston County. They do the licensing and they dictate that who's the 2.
that was
Not on our
part,
shoulders to decide who. Up to the state when they issue the license.
that's part of why I wanted the Office of Cannabis Control to come and visit with us to be able to illuminate kind of that.
Sure.
Does an entity get a license and they can use it wherever it can be permitted, or do they only give so many based on what the county says?
So the county says 2 and there's 3 in Caledonia and the city of Caledonia says they want to keep all 3. Who's gonna win that battle?
County.
County will?
That's
As,
part of,
as the part of the public health.
right, that's
If that's allowed, then we can use public health.
right. I'm not suggesting you do that. I think that's a potential tool that you have. If you want to have reach over the entire county, then you're going to supersede whatever cities do.
I mean, is there that much demand? You need three in Caledonia?
I wouldn't have a clue how much to
No,
go. I mean, there's not.
I think just throwing numbers out there now, just as examples, I can see it, but. You know, which two or which three or, you know.
Sam
Yeah, I
told
mean,
me
yeah,
yesterday that he's gonna put together an email to you guys to outline the legal issues that he sees, and then also invite you, if you've got questions, to reach out to him. So,
Well, maybe this afternoon we can find out what Fillmore's doing too, because they're probably in the same discussion stage right now. That might.
when I spoke with their public health director, she thought that they wouldn't want to have a countywide thing. But that was somewhat surprising to me. We'll see what, you know, I
They
think
have a countywide thing for their edibles?
they do have, they did a licensing thing that they license them. Now that really can't be licensing anymore. They're registering them for the THC. They can speak to that better than I can. But I just gave her a heads up, you know, we've got it on the agenda for the community health board. And I said, this is what our board is wrestling with. What are you guys wrestling with? And her thought was that they wouldn't go that direction. Now, maybe we'll learn differently at the meeting today.
So they're basically registering their folks over there. On the county level.
Well, they started a licensing process, so there was nothing in the 2022 legislation that said that they couldn't license. There were no licenses. It was just approved to sell, and people who sold it
That
didn't
was
need a
wide
license.
open. There was
Right,
no.
right.
No.
Fillmore County decided
No
to,
ordinance,
right.
no guideline, no nothing. That was just a free for all.
right. So, and then on the heels of that came this 2023 legislation that legalizes adult use cannabis. So kind of the way I look at it is CBD has been around for a long time. It's more of your lotions and things that have no THC, no psychoactive ingredients in it. So you see those people use them for medicinal purposes, all kinds of things. Then in 2022, there were the gummies and other edibles, low potency THC, your Delta products, things like that, and infused beverages was made legal. Commissioners Johnson is right. There was no licensing as part of that. And then in 2023, the full legalization of adult use cannabis, which would be high potency marijuana. That's why you enacted a public use ordinance, because it is now legal to have a certain amount of cannabis on you and a certain amount in your home, in your possession, to grow plants and to also smoke or consume. So I look at it as three things: stuff that's been around for a while with CBD, the THC edibles and infused beverages, and then full adult use cannabis, which I would liken to smoking marijuana, or, you know, the green stuff you buy.
So timeline bottom, basically, we need to figure out, number one, if we can enact it.
Right.
If we can, are we going to? And in the same process, we would probably want to talk to Caledonia administrator, La Crescent administrator.
Mhm.
I don't know, smaller towns, I mean, at least find out what their thoughts are,
Work
to
together.
see what their feelings are. And then make a decision from there. But until we know for sure which step we can take,
I'd also
it's a
say
lot unseen yet.
if you're considering enacting something that covers the whole county, you may want to, like with any ordinance, have public
Oh, yeah,
hearings and
that's what you
things
want.
like that.
But until we know.
Right.
That's.
We need to know. if we're gonna-
We're speculating because we don't know the first step yet.
Let's get the speculation out of there in order to move forward.
So is there do I get a sense here from the board that kind of don't want to have to, you want to have a hands-off approach, just let this be handled by the cities and the state, and we're just gonna stay out of it? Is that?
And what I'm saying we need to get an answer.
You gotta have all.
Sam's the one that's gonna have to give us some answers.
If we can use our power as public health, then we can maybe do an ordinance.
Yes, we can. Correct.
Or then we can talk to the cities to see how their feeling is.
and then move forward. from
And
there.
they say, yeah, we'll go in with your ordinance, but we'd like to have before in the county or something.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, or, yeah, I don't know, it's gotta remember, it's legal now, so you can't do a lot. I mean,
Get a feel from La Crescent, who has
Yeah.
one on the pike, and I think they sell some stuff in some of the bars and
Well, they got
whatnot. so
CBD gummies. About the extent of
whether
it.
they have people looking to expand or have a couple there, a couple, we don't know. So let's find out what we can do and then move forward.
And go forward.
So like, will a bar be able to get a license to sell marijuana too, along with alcohol?
I don't know.
Well,
I know with the original law that in 2022 for edibles, liquor stores and bars couldn't sell. So if you remember, there was like a ice fishing house that was put up in the Crescent adjacent to a liquor store because it had to be off premises of that. I believe-
Colorado, I don't think they do it. They're all separate. You see an
Total
old
separate,
storefront that's got a green cross or X or something.
Yeah.
That's where you go.
where you go.
Dispensary.
Green cross of safety, yeah, right.
But I don't know if, you know, if I'm a bar owner, can I apply for a adult cannabis license and sell? You know, I've got my bar, I've got my taps and mixed drinks, and I've also got some canisters of weed. I don't know.
I thought some-
The state licensing thing, once they have their office of cannabis, that's where that distinction is gonna come from, what they allow with their license. We don't know.
I wouldn't think a bar would want to sell it. You can't smoke cigarettes in the bar. but you can smoke.
Well, yeah, I thought someplace they had a separation, I think maybe Saco CBD and liquor store where you couldn't sell it in the premises. So, and to me, that answered the question of a bar owner saying, can I sell the weed across the bar? I would say that would be a no-no. That's,
Unless they created a smoke room or whatever.
Yeah.
Consumption.
Then make sure they're only 21 meters old.
yeah. So,
how many people are gonna grow this? That's key. There's gonna be tons of people growing this stuff.
You can grow it all day long as there's 4 plants that are only blooming. And eight total. I don't know how that's gonna be policed, but whatever.
one of those.
I think the black market's gonna come out on top on this deal.
Funding them in the drive.
Well, if you look at the trend of what the states that have done this already years before. Small mom and pop shops are going out of business, going broke. It's the big pot
Producers.
industry that's taking it over.
That I think is the larger question in some of the zoning you may want to consider if there's going to be an entity that has many acres. And they're a producer and there's different steps along that production, just like any crop.
Well, we also need to consider our rural areas. Are we gonna allow? Pot shops out in the rural areas, you know,
That's gonna
cannabis,
happen if you don't have them in town, they're gonna sell it around the country.
well,
They're doing it right now.
so we need to figure out what the number's gonna be. That's gonna be the tough decision for all of us here. That's the only thing we have control of is the number.
Guess that's best way to say it. For now, until they decide when you get this odd authority going, maybe they'll have something in the rules making.
I asked Matt Hilgard, because I was looking at all the meetings that you could go to. There's nothing about it. Nothing.
They don't even have a breakout?
No, there's no
I never
breakout
break-
sessions on the cannabis thing at all.
Really?
And I asked about the one for paid leave too, the mandatory paid leave, because that's gonna affect the counties.
Yeah.
Nothing on that.
Okay, so.
Anyway, I think let's see what our colleagues in Fillmore say this afternoon. I think it's something that we're discussing, we gotta think through. I would look for Sam's email that he's gonna outline some of his thoughts on the legal side of this. I'll clarify the question today is, can the county exercise public health authority around this issue? Does the statute allow us to do that? And what are the implications of that? And So look for an email from him, and he has opened his door as well if you've got questions on legalities of it. So sorry, I don't have more for you today.
Sounds like a good path.
Yeah, I will also reach out to other counties. I've got a local public health association meeting on Friday. So I'll ask my colleagues there, you know, what are you guys considering? And get some more information there. So this coming Friday, I'll hopefully know a little bit more about our region.
Doesn't Fillmore County have 6 or 7 shops too already that are in the doing the selling it? So they gotta make some, yeah, they gotta make some decisions too. And we kind of know if they're gonna use public health to get to do it or how they're gonna go at it.
I probably don't want to get involved.
Good question is that.
Oh, I think that's, you're right, Bob. There's a lot of these counties are just sitting back, ooh, I don't want to touch this.
All right.
Because there's nobody to talk to. The cannabis thing isn't, the Office of Cannabis is just getting established, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's hard
and
to
they got an
know.
interim in there now because the one that they hired only lasted a day, so.
Yeah. We're gonna try again to get somebody to come and visit either via Skype. I'm not Skype. Yeah, Skype is a bit dated apparently. So to visit with you as a board, it didn't work, as I mentioned last week, so.
Very good.
Thanks, Jim.
I'm guessing they're a little reluctant to overcommit as well until they know what the rulemaking process is gonna be.
I'm guessing you're right.
So, but they may be able to give you some illumination as to, hey, we're going in this direction, help us as we're making some decisions. So I will continue to work on that and I'll see you guys this afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, thanks a lot.
1 o'clock.
40 minutes break this start up.
Okay, moving on to board updates. It's Meyer.
Neat, okay, let's see. Had those zoning meetings and you guys pretty much seen how they all turned out today. And I guess all we got is this afternoon meeting at Mabel. Outside of that, I don't have much going on. Okay. Yeah, about time. Quiet, well, outside of getting a few emails on our taxes.
We'll be getting a few more, I'm sure.
Just the beginning. Just the beginning.
The show.
My phone should quiet down after today's hearing, so. It's on, maybe. Other than that,
Pretty quiet.
pretty quiet, yeah. Oh, yeah, my town should.
Or
Straight across the street from me, actually.
Okay, we had the department head meeting this morning. No, that was the other day.
you go ahead and talk about that if you wish.
We had the department head meeting. It was not a great deal of issue or anything.
I got out of it to fully staffed in the sheriff department and Darlene Larson talked to us about a government day. In the high school, interested in seeing government in action. Things
Did
like
that last year with Spring Grove, and now the high school in Caledonia wants to do it.
Those are the highlights on mine.
That's about it. So then we also had a finance meeting this morning. Great deal to report. It's hard to tell where we stand until we get our tax adjustment from in November to see where we end up with that. Talked about that some. And then I went to the City of Caledonia meeting last night where they were talking about the special assessment for the street project, and it was interesting. There was lots of people there that all turned in their letter of complaint about the way it was being assessed. The engineer said it's the first time he's ever been to one that everybody said it wasn't fair and they didn't want to pay. So that'll be an interesting thing coming up with the city, but they made some adjustments and we'll see how that turns out. I did talk to the city about the county public health, but I didn't get any response as far as what their opinion or their attitude would be about it. This afternoon, of course, we've got Fillmore County Public Health. Then I've got Selco Facilities and Facility meeting in Rochester at 3:30. The Selco annual meeting in Rochester at 4:30. On Wednesday, the pre-AMC Zoom meeting to just talk about what's coming up at the annual conference this weekend. And Thursday is the county's hazard mitigation. You're going to that, Eric? And you're going to that, Bob?
Yep. I emailed Mark, said that I attend, it's via Zoom, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Is that something I can attend to, or does that make it a public?
No, you can attend. It's just an informational.
It's information, okay, so I'll probably attend that. With regard to the annual conference. I got some doctor appointments that came through, and on Wednesday I got doctor appointments, so I'm there Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, and then Tuesday night I head for home so I can make those doctor appointments. So I won't be there for the Wednesday close out and final vote on. Maybe it's all. That's the extent of what I got to report.
Well, I talked to the Houston City Administrator and I asked to be to come to their meeting on December 11th to ask them about the cannabis stuff too, so. Yesterday I had River One Watershed committee meeting. It's a fairly long meeting. We had a lot of discussion. We didn't act on anything. We reviewed that midway point plan. Rachel Ohm from Houston Engineering worked up this assessment progress update. And when she gets a final draft, because there were some changes we made to it, she's going to email that out to us. So I'll probably share that with you guys so you can look it over. So yeah, and there was a discussion report from the meeting that on a project that this gentleman that runs, he works for 22 counties. He had grant projects for rotational grazing and other things too, but his main focus that day was he did rotational grazing for someone in Fillmore County. That cow calves 250 head. And, you know, it's a project that they converted farmland over into pasture. And they put in fencing and water tanks and rotational raised, and they also had some neighboring state land that they could let the animals graze on. So he had a total of it was almost like 1,200 acres. So it was an interesting project. The total cost of the project that when it all came down was $221,000, and 90% of that project was paid for by grants. 10% was the owner farmer paid for it. Plus he had other expenses of clearing trees and seeding down stuff. So what's an accurate figure what he put in, but it was their determination that rotational grazing and having cattle on farmland is a good alternative in a lot of these areas that's highly erodible, better use of the land. So it was an interesting presentation.
Not taking cropland out. Not taking out crop.
No, taking out cropland too. I mean, he said it in one county that he's working on, the guy's taking out 200 bushel of cropland to turn it all into pasture. So.
We got a couple farms around here.
Well, you know, they're looking at this as a water quality issue too, and runoff and such. So maybe he wants to raise cattle.
Hay-fed cattle is getting to be a big deal now instead of corn-fed cattle.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so.
Grass fed, yeah.
You can have it.
Doesn't taste that.
Yeah, a little drier, but then.
So yeah, that meeting went till
Interesting.
1 o'clock, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it started at 9.
Still plenty of room.
We
that's
do have
basically-
a couple farms like you're talking about there that are 200 acres and they're all grass and they just graze it every year.
Yeah. Yep.
And then supposedly rebuilds the nutrients in your ground.
Yep.
Then they put goats on them and that kills the weeds and I guess that's supposed to make your grounds quite a bit better.
Yep. Creates a carpet.
Okay.
That's
it.
basically.
A couple of things that I was looking back in my department head there, looking for some help on weekends for the crop sites, the workers needing some extra help, so Marty was mentioning that, looking at a way to get more help. Also mentioned that the dump fee for La Crosse landfill went up $10. It's gonna go up $10 come January.
A ton.
Yeah. And it hasn't gone up for several years, I guess, so I mean, it was inevitable. Yeah, mentioned that some of the water testing possibility of working with La Crosse County to help us test some of those kits, water samples, so that's in the infancy yet. Last night I went to the Crescent City Council, questions came up about the taxes. I again explained how the assessor has to be within a certain percentage, and then this morning's finance helped me with the formula for how they determine tax. That came up. They are looking to request another look at the no wake zone on West Channel. And then the final thing that was really interesting, their next squad car is going to be a Tesla. They have grant money coming in to the tune of $12,000 a year, so they're going to lease a Tesla. Reason they went with that is that the closest car to it was the Mustang, and that was $30,000 more because it says Mustang on it versus Tesla. I just shook my head, but that's
An electric Mustang?
Yeah.
So they're looking to get this grant money, $12,000 a year for the next 4 years. And then the balance they have to pay themselves, which probably who knows what that's gonna be.
The officer better dress warm, because when he's sitting, you can't let him run.
That's right.
It's.
Anyway, that's the hot things in La Crescent area. So, anything else for the good of the cause?
Well, I should mention too about the water test kits, that the conversation of this nitrate thing came up in our meeting yesterday too. And we asked about if there's any way that we could use some of our River One money to go towards reverse osmosis equipment or whatever, and Bowser said that none of our money is allowed to be used for that. Our money is strictly for water quality and on the surface, basically. That was, we kind of figured that would be a no, so.
Okay. Okay, Carol, anything exciting over your neck of the woods?
Well, I guess while you're at AMC, I'll be prepping for the truth and taxation meeting. If there's anything in particular that you'd like to see, just let me know. You know, have kind of the same format for quite a few years, so maybe.
Well, we gotta just reiterate that this is a discussion on the budget. And not assessment values. And so, I mean, I've gotten a lot of phone calls too over the weekend and people are upset. The last thing they tell me, well, I'll be at that meeting.
Well, maybe they'll think about a couple of things too in December, being that we don't have a meeting next Tuesday. We'll have a 12th, and I think we should do on the 19th instead of a group work, have that as a regular meeting so we can work on finishing up the dues throughout the year.
It is scheduled like a regular.
Yeah, we don't have a work group scheduled.
Yeah.
Right.
It's already regular. Because I usually it falls on that third month Tuesday when they're reiterating that, and then of course the final Tuesday is when they do the final budget. Okay.
Yep.
And let me, excuse me. And any closing comment, public comment, anywhere up on the screen or here or none? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Again.
Discussion, all in favor say yeah, yeah. Thank you.